Good evening. Welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. Each week in this time slot, we'll highlight those issues involved with firearms, and particularly with self-defense with firearms. And we'll have a guest on to help with those issues. Tonight we have very graciously here Alan Buttell, a local attorney in Las Vegas. Alan is an ex-Marine and Kansas State trooper and currently an attorney here in Las Vegas. Alan, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, but I have to correct you. An ex-Marine crawls up on water towers and shoots people. Former Marine.
And you are?
Former.
Former Marine, okay. Well, I want to make sure the water tower thing didn't apply there.
So far, so good.
So I make one small mistake. Anyway, we're going to talk about civil lawsuits here. We were talking about on the last show with Mike Giles, and I wanted to get in a little bit further into it where people commit what they may think is a reasonable self-defense shooting. They feel their life's in danger and create not a clear-cut case. Most cases are a little bit fuzzy depending on the circumstances, how far away the assailant was, how big, how small, so forth and so on, how threatening is he. I presume you've had that type of case in your career where someone fired at someone and it was a little dicey as to whether it was really a legal self-defense shooting.
Well, actually, I tend to have clients who intend to shoot their victims and under circumstances that are pretty questionable. I have rarely actually defended anybody who was shooting at somebody without trying to kill them intentionally.
So you're a criminal defense attorney, and
more often than not, those are the circumstances where I end up defending someone. Yes.
And your job then is to reduce
figure
the liability.
Yes, how to avoid going to prison for long periods of time.
Hence, we have murder, and we have attempted murder, and we have all degrees of manslaughter, and so forth and so on in our system. There's a case I handed you a little bit earlier. A woman in Louisiana who fired at a fella who had come into her house, pointed a gun at her. When she saw that, she woke up, saw that. We're at 1:40 in the morning, I believe. She screamed, of course, as anybody would, and that caused the fella who was in her doorway with a gun to back away from the doorway and move to a different part of the house. Mm-hmm. She retrieves a shotgun from the closet, comes out, points it at him, forces him to leave the house. So far, so good.
Absolutely.
As he's leaving the house and is apparently outside the house, she fires 3 rounds. Another student of the Joe Biden Home Defense Academy. But that's getting really common, I understand, because of the vice president's comments. But in that case, she missed the guy, which is, I would assume, a good thing. There could have been some civil liability there. What started out as a very reasonable use of the shotgun for self-defense seemed to go a little bit south when he's leaving the house.
It is, I think, a safe thing to say that shooting at a fleeing person is generally a bad idea. The sense of imminent peril has long ago run away by the time she's shooting at the guy that's running. So she was all good to go until he ran out of the house. When she started shooting, she was way out there. I heard a famous attorney say one time that a stray bullet has an attorney attached to it.
I believe I heard that recently myself.
And so I couldn't improve upon that interpretation.
This goes back, I'm looking at legal theory here. This goes back to the Garner versus Tennessee case in 1985, where a police officer shot at a fleeing felon. And later the Supreme Court decided that because there was no immediate danger at the time that he fired his gun, that the officer was wrong in the shooting. It was an involved lawsuit, went to the Supreme Court. I'm sure you got it in law school. And it seems to be the granddaddy case of this, although that was a Supreme Court case dealing with a law enforcement officer trying to corral a fleeing felon. It was a burglar who was running away. The Supreme Court said that deadly force should not be used as long-range handcuffs, basically. It can't be used against fleeing people, but only against people who are a danger at the time the shots are fired. There's going to be a little gray area in there, I know.
Well, it's an easy concept to remember. I don't really understand why there's such controversy over it. Imminent peril, imminent danger, the threat of immediate death or bodily harm to yourself or someone very near by you. Other than that, leave your gun holstered.
That seems pretty simple. You know, the difficulty, I guess, is in doing it in real life. When you are in the heat of the moment, the dynamic situation, everybody's moving. You're normally, if you're in fear of your life, you're scared to death. Your brain is running at 100 miles an hour. I've even had cases when I was teaching police academies where the police cadets was so concentrated on the target, especially during a qualification. They've got so many seconds to fire so many rounds. And on one windy day, it actually happened a couple of times over the years, the target that he was firing at came dislodged from the target frame, and he followed it across the range about 45 degrees, almost into where he'd be firing down the line of the other students, with absolutely no idea that the target was moving. He was simply so concentrated on hitting the center, because his law enforcement career depends on this. You have to pass the shooting qualification, obviously. I hadn't addressed with him, if your target blows off the stand, quit shooting, but we did in future academies. But it was interesting to watch the student do that, and he had absolutely no concept that the target was moving sideways or moving further away from him, in effect, at the time.
Probably so were the others. Shooters.
Yeah, the other students were also moving away from him. But that was a first-hand look at that actual concentration that you have. We have that difficulty with things like this also, where they hit somebody that's in the background. When they fire their rounds, they're concentrating on the individual that's in front of them. We talked about a case on last night's show where an individual fired a shotgun where there was an apartment building with lots of people living in it directly behind where the individual was firing. And I'm sure he had no concept that the apartment building was behind him, because he's looking at the suspect and apparently fearing for his life. That was kind of a questionable case, but when people don't look at the background, it's the same thing. They are so concentrated that they don't remember what happened. I even have said sometimes to attorneys when we're discussing cases that if the guy remembers every detail of the shooting, it probably wasn't self-defense. Right. Because real people can't remember.
Well, it takes a rare individual to remain cool under circumstances like that. I mean, the adrenaline rush, I just think it's more likely than not that somebody's going to have the kind of overreaction that you're talking about.
We'll discuss that a little further. We're going to break for some commercial messages. We'll be right back.
Are you able to protect your loved ones? We at the Gun Store have been helping Las Vegas residents equip themselves with home defense and personal safety products for over 25 years. We carry a full line of self-defense options, and our CCW Concealed Firearms Permit class is free. Our other classes include Ladies Self-Defense and Free Children's Gun Safety class. Our indoor range is open 7 days a week for you to try out some options and shoot a real machine gun. The Gun Store, located at 2900 East Tropicana Avenue.
And we are back here on Fired Up. Attorney Alan Buttell and I were discussing the stress reaction that people seem to have when they're in these self-defense situations. It just came to mind as I'm doing this. I need to not use an outline on this show and just talk about real life. Some years ago, when I was out looking at we were chasing warrants when I was a bailiff. And my partner and I happened onto a guy running down Las Vegas Boulevard with a machete in his hand, screaming at some people running further down the block. that he was going to get them and so forth. We turned around and thought we maybe should talk to this individual. And when we pulled up, the individual that had the machete had stopped, and he turns around and looks at me on the sidewalk, and I made some warning to him, police department, put the machete on the ground or something to that effect.
Did you have your weapon drawn at that point?
I had my weapon in my hand, yeah. And with a machete, the guy's 10 feet away, yeah, I would have had a howitzer.
Oh, I saw you going like this, so I thought
yeah,
you probably
I was. So the individual looked at me and obviously was not comprehending, and I yelled, "Put the machete on the ground," and he looked at me and went, to make sure he was the guy I was talking to. This is 2:00 in the morning. There are not too many people there. And we had a little discussion. He kind of meandered toward me, and when I had made the decision that it was time to shoot him, he was getting closer than I wanted. He apparently could read minds if he didn't listen to commands, because he suddenly just shut the machete on the ground and leaned on a truck that was there. Later, we discovered in talking to him that he worked at Opportunity Village. He had some mental issues. He was chasing the other guys because they threw a rock at his truck. But the interesting part of the scenario, I have been teaching firearms for years and years, and do you know what was directly behind where he was standing?
I can't imagine.
I can't either. I have absolutely no idea. I was looking at downtown Las Vegas down the sidewalk, and I have no idea whether there was anybody else standing there or not, because I'm looking at the machete and him and the danger.
Must be a tunnel vision.
And I had no idea.
Type of thing
It's just total tunnel vision onto the target. I've run into that more than once in training, which makes me think that we may have people here who, these shootings that we look at, civil liability, that they really don't know at the time they fire what's going on behind what they're looking at.
I can tell you, it isn't, just, run-of-the-mill average folks living in their houses that have this happen to them. A good friend of mine owns a tavern in Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department set up a sting operation, and they were using his parking lot in order to conduct some drug transactions. It went without telling him, okay? And through the course of this sting, things went south. The bad guys started fleeing, and Las Vegas Metropolitan Police opened up firing approximately 80 to 100 rounds, none of which hit the bad guy or his car. And this is over off of Decatur, near the Boulevard Mall, in that general area.
Right.
So if you can imagine these stray bullets flying everywhere, there were signs that were hit, poles that were hit, and of course his business went down the tank because it was then considered it was considered a dangerous place to go. No, there was fortunately no one was hurt, but it was just unimaginable how this could happen. But there it is.
I think I'm recalling the case a couple of years ago, and the FBI was involved also in that sting, I believe.
Yes.
I didn't want to mention the FBI, that they did it wrong.
But
also.
the highest level of law enforcement that we can think of, the FBI, Metro, highly trained members
Right.
of this organization, in a planned scenario, and that's what happens.
Still lose their
So
target
when you and I
identification.
have a situation where we don't know the background and we're getting that tunnel vision, it's hardly surprising.
Yeah, it's really expected, I think, when you were dealing with, quote, highly trained police officers, as they always say. In reality, it's difficult for everybody to pay attention to what's going on around you when you're in that survival mode. We're going to break for a little bit of commercial here. We'll be right back with Attorney Alan Buttell and more on this issue. Don't go away.
Are you able to protect your loved ones? We at the Gun Store have been helping Las Vegas residents equip themselves with home defense and personal safety products for over 25 years. We carry a full line of self-defense options, and our CCW Concealed Firearms Permit class is free. Our other classes include Ladies Self-Defense and free Children's Gun Safety class. Our indoor range is open 7 days a week for you to try out some options and shoot a real machine gun. The Gun Store, located at 2900 East Tropicana Avenue.
Hey, we are back here on Fired Up. Thanks for staying tuned. We're talking with Alan Buttell, attorney here in Las Vegas. I wanted to talk also, we've run through a number of cases that were potentially bad shootings. Being as you're a ex-Kansas police officer, I thought I would throw one in that took place in Kansas that was right. And in this case, we had a bartender who is standing behind the bar in his place of business, and a fellow walks in the door with a large knife and attempts to commit a robbery. He moves toward the cash register. At that point, the individual that owned the place took his gun out from under the counter, shot the guy a couple times, who staggered out the front door and fell in the sidewalk, dead right there, as we say. And this was a absolutely reasonable, perfect self-defense shooting. No criminal charges, no civil lawsuits brought. And I want to let people know we have those shootings here also, because we're kind of hitting the issue of wrongful shootings. When you see something like that and the individual, although he was standing behind the bar, the guy was right on top of him with a knife, a reasonable shooting, no criminal case there, no civil lawsuit there.
You're asking me?
I'm asking
Based upon
you.
the facts that you gave me, I don't like it. I don't like
Really
that
don't?
shooting. No, absolutely not. And whether it's a large knife or a small knife, I guess larger's better, but you've got that area of separation. Again, the whole concept of imminent peril. This bartender, separated by at least the bar,
Right.
with a firearm that can reach his intended much quicker than the knife is going to reach anybody. A lot of questions. Did he announce that he was armed? Did he hold up the gun? Did he try to stop the attack from happening? What are the witnesses going to say? Were there witnesses?
They'd all been drinking.
Well, of course. Anyway, on the facts that you gave me, I'm filled with a lot of questions about it, and I wouldn't pass that as a justifiable shooting yet, just based on those facts.
Well, I will grant you that. And that's the one of the problems.
And certainly
we
the
have.
bartender's going to be sued for a wrongful death.
Oh, certainly the victim's mother is not going to think he was rightfully shot. The mother never does, and the lawsuits will come.
Did it say where in Kansas this happened?
It says in Topeka, Kansas.
There you go, the capital. Yeah, it's filled with lawyers. That guy's getting sued. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting when we're talking about this, and that you brought up a great point in your reaction to that. What appears to me on the face to be a legitimate shooting, there are a lot of details that are missing, and people need to recognize that when they see things in the paper, and it says, so and so did this, and the judge or the jury said guilty or not guilty, and you read that and think that how could the jury possibly do that, or how could the judge possibly decide that? When I work on cases, as you know, I do some expert witness work, and yes. When I get a case like this that I just read in one paragraph, actually the pile I get is about 4 inches thick of all the details that happened in this thing, and those details make a huge difference. As you said, the size of the knife, was the guy leaning over the bar with the knife? Could the bartender have backed up? Could he have yelled at him, drop the knife, get out of my bar? Or did he, and the guy didn't leave the bar? Was the guy slashing the knife? Was he just standing there with it? Big knife, little knife? All of those things make a huge difference in these cases.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to warn viewers that when these things happen, the description that you get in the newspaper is very, very limited, and understand also that reporters write those news stories, and they have a view of what happened that they really can't help but put into the story.
Well, and another lesson I think that you're trying that would be well taken by anybody who's defending themselves. You got to be cool under fire. You got to be cool under pressure. It's hard to do, the tunnel vision thing, but when you really got to be cool is right after the shooting, because you don't want to just start talking or just blurting out the first thing that comes out, trying to describe to the police what happened. You need to shut up, call your attorney, and get a well thought out statement ready. It's going to take weeks.
Advice we hear over and over again, and I've seen so many people get themselves in trouble by trying to explain something. The first uniformed guy that shows up, they want to defend themselves, and get some kind of belief out of him that they were right in what they did.
Fifth Amendment right to remain silent should be used whenever possible.
We're going to have to break for just a minute here. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old routine? It's time to shake things up with a visit to the Pro Gun Club of Las Vegas. Located just 25 minutes from the Strip, Pro Gun Club offers 160 acres of space, featuring skeet shooting, rifle and handgun ranges. It's a great place to practice, and safety is always number one. Come anytime and enjoy the grounds, or ask about our membership. The Pro Gun Club is a great place to celebrate and respect your Second Amendment right. Spice up your leisure time with the Pro Gun Club. Call us at 293-2108 today.
Welcome back. We are back here on Fired Up with my guest attorney, Alan Buttell. I'm going to digress off what we were talking about just briefly. We're talking in the same vein, talking about civil liability in shootings. Assembly Leader William Horn in our state legislature has put a bill in to the hopper there, which deals with Brady background checks. And in part, the bill says if anybody selling a gun runs a Brady check on the individual that they're selling the gun to, be it a civilian or a store, would be then immune from liability if that individual he sold the gun to misused that gun. And then the flip side, it says also that if you don't run a Brady background check on the individual you sell the gun to, you are civilly liable for any misuse of that firearm that he does. This is a long answer, and we've got 3 minutes here, but give me your comments.
How do I run a background check, Brady, on Uncle Fester if I'm going to sell him my .357? How do I do that practically?
You go to a licensed dealer, and the dealer runs the Brady check for you. That's what happens now. We have actually received letters from the administration asking us to do that. So assuming that it's possible to do.
And how much is that going to cost?
That's going to cost $25.
Just one $25 fee?
Right now. But Horn's bill adds a little cost to that. But what I'm interested in here is the liability waiver. If he gets a law through that says if I sell you a gun and I run a Brady check, that whatever you do with the gun, I'm immune in civil court from lawsuit. You think that's valid or could really hold
I don't
up?
know why that's even necessary. You're not liable for what Uncle Fester does with the gun in the first place, as far as I know. I think it would just depend on the circumstances. But what are we saying here? I sell my gun to Uncle Fester, and as long as I did the Brady check, Uncle Fester goes out and wipes out 50 school children. I'm out of the lawsuit automatically. I'm going to be immune.
That's what Horn's bill says.
I guess I have no problem with that theoretically, but I just don't see why it's necessary. What do you think?
That's going to work? That we can make liability go away if we run a
Nobody
background
can make
check?
liability go away. I mean, first of all, liability and immunity from it may ultimately result in you not getting a judgment against you, okay? But that's easy. The hard part is going through the 2.5 or 3 years of litigation and paying your attorney $5,000 a month to defend you to get to that point. Now, are you going to be able to recover that money? I mean, it's going to cost you because you are going to be named if you have any reasonable reason to be named as a defendant in a lawsuit. And I don't think Horn's idea is going to stop that from happening. You're going to be named, you're going to have to defend yourself, you're going to have to hire an attorney, and you're going to have to pay big bucks. Now, if his bill says you don't have to do any of that,
that's what it says. I just can't see it holding up
if
in real life.
If his bill said you cannot be named, that'd be a different story.
Well, we don't have the exact wording of the bill yet. It's in a bill draft resolution. He hasn't shown it to anybody yet. Anyway, we've reached the end of our time slot here. I thank everybody for watching us again. Please hit our Facebook page, Facebook/Fired Up with Bob, with your questions and comments. We'll be back next week.
Are you tired of the same old routine? It's time to shake things up with a visit to the Pro Gun Club of Las Vegas. Located just 25 minutes from the Strip, Pro Gun Club offers 160 acres of space, featuring skeet shooting, rifle and handgun ranges. It's a great place to practice, and safety is always number one. Come anytime and enjoy the grounds, or ask about our membership. The Pro Gun Club is a great place to celebrate and respect your Second Amendment right. Spice up your leisure time with the Pro Gun Club. Call us at 293-2108 today.